Our story begins on a cold, snowy day under a clear blue sky. A young man named Shimde Young watches the scene with a very calm gaze. A soldier approaches him and checks his identity on his cell phone. After confirmation, the guard orders a giant metal gate to be opened. They're at the Chirwan conflict zone, an isolated place up north. Passing through the gate, our protagonist begins his solitary journey through the snow. Along the way, he uses a device to check the coordinates. It shows the correct direction, and he wonders if this is truly the path. Then a mysterious blue energy starts radiating from his feet on the ground. He blasts into the air, since awakened individuals like him possess superhuman abilities. Cutting to the past, we're introduced to the event known as the Dawn. On that day, portals opened and monsters invaded the world, destroying everything. Humanity was nearly wiped out, but certain people awakened powers to fight back. Thanks to these heroes, civilization rose again during a 20-year war. In the final battle at Incheon, one of the 5 Great War heroes appeared. All by himself, he managed to defend the city and finally bring the war to an end. All of this became history, and 29 years have passed since that day. Our visitor traveled to this remote area to find the legendary hero. Arriving there, he comes across an 80-year-old man living all alone. However, the old man's presence was far more imposing than he had expected. Startled, our protagonist leaps back and slips on the snow. In doing so, he bumps into a giant monster with a duck's face and an ostrich's body. This creature, called a mossduck, looks cute but is incredibly dangerous. The young man tenses up, knowing this beast can run at 100 kilometers per hour. To make matters worse, these creatures never live alone, they travel in flocks. Seeing the horde, he prepares for a fight, as they are rank A disaster monsters. Suddenly, their mouths fly open, revealing sharp teeth and a threatening glare. A bead of sweat forms on the young man's brow. He figures a fight won't end well. So, he quickly changes his mind and starts sprinting in the opposite direction. While running, he shouts, wondering how anyone could live in a place like this. But then, a fiery bird appears in the sky, catching his attention. It was a thunderbird, a rank A disaster type that destroys everything in its sight. He despairs, unable to understand how a monster like that is flying with local birds. Amidst the chaos, the boy spots a small wooden cabin in the distance. He decides to head there and try to hide from the monsters. However, the firebird dives right for him, ready to strike. The creature grabs him with its enormous talons, lifting him off the ground. With glowing eyes, the electric monster stares at him up close. He had just accepted his fate when a voice yells out, telling it not to eat him. Instantly, the thunderbird transforms into a fluffy chick, leaving him confused. The boy is astonished, certain he just heard a human voice. Then, a person holding a staff appears and shoos the birds away. With that, the giant bird releases him in mid-air, and he plummets, screaming in terror. He smacks right into the snowy ground but is thankfully hurt. Seeing the monsters obey a command, he's left wondering what just happened. A blue-haired young man in summer clothes asks if he's the new officer. Our visitor is shocked by the sudden appearance and asks who he is. Ignoring the question, the man tells the other creatures to leave as well. The giant ducks were still glaring at the young man with rage in their eyes. But with a simple gesture from their host, the monsters fall under complete control. The creatures snap their mouths shut, their faces showing fear and submission. The flock quickly turns and flees in single file, leaving the officer behind. The hero then complains, saying he's already told them not to visit all the time. The young man stammers, asking if he might be the person he's looking for. Calmly, the blue-haired man introduces himself as Choi Kang-ho. He then turns his back and invites him inside for a bite to eat. The visitor is in total shock as he realizes this is the war hero. The legendary beast master who brought peace during the Great War was just a young man. With that, the officer yells out "Senior" and asks to tag along. The scene closes on the cabin's snow-covered roof under a blue sky. Inside, our visitor sits down while his host prepares a meal. He notes how simple and empty the place is, but something else is on his mind. The officer wonders how that guy can be 80 years old with such a youthful face. Sensing his doubt, the Beastmaster asks if he's surprised and lights the fire. He explains that other heroes from his era are now old and in charge of guilds. A small blue bird appears with an egg, and he says he doesn't know why his body never ages. The young man calls it a common excuse and asks what that thing is. With a grin, the hero says it's a thunderbird chick and that it's quite cute. The visitor agrees and smiles, finding the little creature rather adorable. Seeing a monster serving drinks, he understands why the hero is a living legend. He then mentions that the senior still raises beasts and heard about his partner from the war. His partner was a 9-tailed phantom fox and SS-rank creature. Shortly after, the host serves a meal with an egg and a mug of coffee. But he says he doesn't want to talk about it, and asks to get to the point. The officer apologizes, stating that a major problem has come up recently. On his phone, he shows new monster species that appeared out of nowhere. The hero's expression turns serious. This is a first since the Great War. Finishing their talk, the visitor says goodbye and apologizes for his rudeness. Before he leaves, he asks one last question: why does he live here all alone? With a serene look, the Beastmaster says he is waiting for something. Curious, the officer asks what exactly he's waiting for out here. Suddenly, a giant white tiger grabs him from behind, sending the young man into a panic. That creature was a saber-toothed tiger, a rank A disaster monster. Kang-ho says his goodbyes, warning that the place gets dangerous at night, so the beast will take him back. Carried away at high speed, the visitor screams for the senior in pure desperation. With the officer gone, the hero stretches, looking very relieved to be alone again. After that, he heads back inside the cabin and peacefully starts washing dishes. He then sits down to watch his small pet monsters eat their food. Later, the young man goes out to sweep the snow, which hasn't stopped falling for a second. Just then, the saber-toothed tiger returns and pounces on him playfully. The giant beast begins to lick its master's face with great care and affection. The hero asks if he's back already, joking if the beast didn't just leave him somewhere. Hearing this, the tiger's eyes well up, looking quite offended by the accusation. Meanwhile, we see the officer zipping down a snowy mountain at high speed. He arrives at the base gate completely dizzy, where the guard greets him casually. The soldier chuckles and says everyone gets a surprise on their first visit. The visitor still can't believe what happened, and the guard says he's already used to it. Back at the cabin, the Beastmaster prepares to set out on a new journey. He climbs onto the back of his companion Mungchai with a determined expression. With that, the hero tells him they can now head to their destination. Riding his white tiger, he dashes through the snow at incredible speed. The story then jumps back 49 years to show us how it all started. The monster's influence had transformed the region into a place with unique beings. It was in these snowfields 49 years ago that everything began. There, he approaches a glowing orb meeting Seal Hoa for the very first time. Staring at the glow, he notices it has been slowly growing over time. The mysterious egg rested at the very top of a snow-covered mountain. Cutting to a great battle, we see a horde of terrible monsters approaching. The hero stood alone, surrounded by enemies on a completely deserted street. Even circled by countless creatures, the young man maintained a serene look. All at once, the monsters rushed toward him. With that, a powerful blue light began to shine from our hero's body. The energy explodes outward, striking the monsters all around him. With his powers active, he prepares to annihilate the entire horde. Activating his special ability, he calls for his contracted beast, Soul. In that moment, giant paws descend from the sky toward the enemies. A giant glowing fox crushes all the monsters in a single move. Next to his legendary partner, the hero looks upon the enemies fallen on the ground. He then reaches out his hand, gently touching his companion's fur. With a serious gaze, he calls to her, ready for them to finally act together. He narrates that his partner had beautiful eyes and silver fur, and together they fought to end that war. In this battle, he managed to save the entire world from total destruction. But in exchange for victory, the hero ended up losing his beloved companion. The giant fox was on the ground, its eyes nearly closed. Heartbroken, he says his farewells and thanks her for all her effort. At his words, the creature's eyes slowly close for their final rest. A look of profound sadness crosses the young man's face as he watches his friend pass. Suddenly, the fox's body starts to glow and break apart into particles. Bit by bit, the legendary creature completely vanishes into the air. He stands in shock, seeing that only a small blue crystal remained in her place. After Seal Ho's disappearance, that object was all that was left of her. And since that day, he has waited there, unchanged from how he was then. He speaks to the orb, saying it will be the new year once midnight strikes. Just then, a tiny earth fairy appears near his clock. The young man smiles, asking if they came from the gate to celebrate the new year. One of the fairies flies to the clock, which reads the year 2069. Beside his tiger, he watches the small creatures flitting around him. With only 2 seconds to midnight, time seems to stand still. Suddenly, the crystal on the mountaintop begins to shine with intensity. He turns toward the light with a serious, expectant expression. On the clock's final second, the crystal glows brightly and starts to crack. When midnight hits, the orb shatters in an incredibly bright explosion of light. The hero watches the glow as blue energy flies out from the crystal. 50 years have passed since the dawn, and a familiar silhouette appears. He is shocked as 30 years have passed since the end of the Great War. In that moment, he is reunited with a being identical to his former companion Seal Hua. In the same snowy field, he approaches the little creature, who seems quite curious. The scene flashes back 50 years, when he was a soldier in Chirwan. At that time, he was fleeing from a horde of terrifying monsters, and in his arms, he fiercely protected a small white fox he had found. It was in that very moment of desperation that he first met her. Amid the chaos, the little white fox caught his eye as if by fate. Back in the present, he says that her child has finally awakened from the egg. Hearing this, the small creature leaps toward the hero with great energy. She then lands gently on his shoulder, looking at him with her blue eyes. As a sign of affection, the fox begins to lick the Beastmaster's face. He asks if she is greeting him with that cute, unexpected gesture. With a serene smile, he pets her head and greets her in return. The young man then remarks that she looks very much like his old battle partner. But suddenly, he sees dragons flying in the sky and activates his special ability. Using his Beast Eye skill, he analyzes the creature and sees it's quite weak. He becomes serious, as this is a new species he hasn't seen since the Great War. The hero then recalls the officer showing him new monsters on his phone. He wonders if the cub's awakening and these monsters are just a coincidence. The little fox on his shoulder and the large tiger stare at each other with curiosity. With that, the little fox moves closer and touches her new companion's nose. The scene then cuts to the Gangnam district in Seoul at night. There stands the Mercenary Tower, headquarters to one of the nation's 3 great guilds. All at once, a blue blur flies at high speed toward the building. An outside security guard notices the approach and goes on alert. He radios in that a demonic beast has appeared on the building's roof. The man desperately yells for immediate backup, but his partner calms him, reminding him of the emergency response manual. He explains it's a VIP, a friend of the boss, and orders the gate opened. With that, access to the rooftop is granted via a digital panel. The tiger bares its teeth, and the rookie screams, thinking he's about to be attacked. Kang Ho tells his companion to stop as he's scaring people. He pets the tiger, asking him to wait until he returns. The hero then greets the guard and asks if the person he's seeking is inside. He enters a luxurious office and observes the city through a giant window. He glances at an old photo, remembering how young and energetic his friend was. The hero then comments that his companion's footsteps seem heavier with age. Suddenly, the guild master Mchol Bei shouts his old friend's name. The man runs over and gives him a bear hug so tight it nearly breaks the protagonist. They stumble into a shelf full of liquor and Kang Ho is surprised by the amount. The old man says that at 80, they need a drink to properly catch up. The little fox, hidden in his sweatshirt, pokes her head out for some air. The tiny creature seems relieved to finally escape the tight space and breathe. Chol Bei then comes closer and notices the little fox, finding her familiar. His jaw drops and he asks if that creature was born from Seol Hawa's egg. With a smile, Kang Ho confirms it, adding that he named the cub Seol A. The guildmaster jokes if he came all this way just to show off the cute animal. Then the old man gets excited, saying they absolutely must have a drink to celebrate. The two friends sit down to drink and talk, surrounded by many bottles. But the hero interrupts, saying the real reason for his visit is something else. He shows photos on his phone of the new monsters the disaster agency provided. The old man's expression shifts. He says his guild is also having trouble. One of his top agents, an A-class awakened, has vanished in the conflict zone. Kang Ho grows thoughtful, saying something very strange is happening in the world. With a serious look, the guild leader notes that these new monsters are different. He explains that the new creatures were harboring a dark, demonic energy. Hearing this, Kang Ho looks grim as he takes a sip of his drink. Every monster from the Dawn War possessed that same powerful energy. Those beings had their instincts heightened and an unbelievable ferocity. The old man slams his glass on the table and abruptly changes the topic. He starts bragging that his guild ranked 6th in Korea this year. The hero congratulates him, but his friend complains that his ranking keeps dropping. He then grabs a device and asks his friend to test his magical power with it. The Beastmaster refuses, saying he doesn't know how to use it and finds it a bother. Chobei insists, saying his friend has to use it or he won't get a gift. Convinced by curiosity, the young man puts his arm inside the device. Blue energy begins to flow from him as the device starts its power reading. The result shows he ranks first domestically and also first in the world. The guild master is floored and asks what he's been doing in isolation. With a smile, he replies that he just tended to the farm and raised his tiger, Meng Shi. The old man gets jealous, wondering if farming is the secret to his own life. Near the hero's home is a dungeon with fruits that strengthen beasts. The place is also inhabited by fairies and monsters that help the plants grow. Flashing back a bit, we see the hero holding a large fairy stone. He received it as a gift from his friend and buries it to strengthen the orchard. With his hands in the soil, he uses his energy to activate the stone's power. A great wave of blue energy erupts from the ground with immense force. Looking at the outcome, he remarks to the little fox that the effect was incredible. The fruits in that orchard began to glow with an intense, bluish light. The fairies and little monsters also grew, becoming much happier there. Suddenly, little Seola leaps from her master's shoulder and begins to fly. She gets incredibly excited by the new energy and plays with the other creatures. He then activates his beast eye and analyzes the little fox's stats. The young man is surprised. It's the first time he's seen stats with question marks. The small creature's tail starts to glow intensely with energy. With a determined look, the little fox stares seriously at something in the distance. Kang Ho notices the shift and tries to figure out what she's watching so intently. With that, the fox shoots off at high speed toward the sky, leaving him behind. Startled by her sudden move, the hero worriedly shouts her name. The little creature continues her flight with a serious expression. The young man stands still, watching the trail of light his partner left behind. He then rises, wondering if she could have sensed a nearby threat. With that thought, he decides to follow the trail and see what's happening. Blue energy starts to gather at his feet for the initial takeoff. He then dashes through the forest, leaving a streak of light in his wake. He manages to catch up to his partner, and they run together through the snow. The little fox seems exhausted but keeps running with determination. She pushes herself to match her master's speed as he watches her. A smile crosses his face as he thinks about how well the little fox runs. Together, they leap from a cliff, soaring over the snowy mountains. Little Seola leads the way, leaving a trail of blue light across the air. Arriving at their destination, he spots a horde of monsters attacking a group. 3 elf fairies were cornered by some very frightening creatures. The little fox wastes no time attacking the monsters of the sphere of energy. She lets out a cute but mighty roar to intimidate the enemies. The horde of monsters becomes enraged and prepares to counterattack with full force. The fairies scream desperately, pleading for someone to save them. The young man realizes Seola ran all this way just to protect those fairies, but suddenly a giant snake emerges from the mountains behind the fox. He thinks it's too soon for her to face a Ranka Calamity monster. It was a Titanobo, a Ranka creature with immense destructive potential. The giant serpent opens its jaws and lunges to attack little Seola. With a simple 2-finger gesture, Kang Ho says playtime is over. The Titanobo halts its attack instantly, as if hypnotized. He then activates his predator instinct, becoming the world's alpha predator. With the ability active, all the monsters feel fear and shrink back. He holds out his hand and all enemies on the field are completely paralyzed. The young man then grabs the snake's head and gives it a very serious threat. The 3 elf fairies are left speechless at the man's incredible power. He demands a response, and the snake nods its head in agreement. Satisfied, the hero dismisses the monsters who flee in a panic. The fairies are overwhelmed with emotion and begin to cry with relief, but out of nowhere, a giant rooster with a dark aura appears. The creature glares at the hero, its eyes glowing with a purple light. Little Siola senses the threat and prepares to fight the enemy. The Beast Master is surprised to feel demonic energy coming from that rooster. He uses his ability and sees it's a raptor, and a very weak one at that. The little fox doesn't hesitate, firing a beam of blue energy at her opponent. The rooster retaliates with a dark claw attack, and the two clash. The hero is surprised to see a new species with that demonic energy. The creature then opens a dark portal and quickly escapes through it. Seeing this, the young man prepares to jump into the portal after the enemy. He grows concerned, wondering if there's a Majin nearby now. Suddenly, little Siola begins to glow with an incredibly intense light. In doing so, she sprouts a second tail and gains a new combat ability. Multiple raptors with dark auras emerge from the forest surrounding our hero. The little fox asks permission to go play with the new enemies for a bit. He thinks to himself that she's acting exactly like her mother used to. Back then, he would train with Seal Hoa by giving her a doll to bite. Together, they grew strong through countless battles. But in the end, that path of constant fighting led to a tragic conclusion. That's why he wanted to raise little Seal A to have a normal life. However, she was born with a love for battle, just like her mother. With that, he decides to form a contract with her so they can always fight together. A ring of light appears on his finger, and the little fox looks at him overjoyed. He touches her head and promises he will raise her to be the best in the world. A burst of blue energy seals the contract between the two partners. The little fox receives a massive amount of magical power directly from her master. The contract's magic circle shines brightly on the forest floor. With that, a contract ring, glowing with power, appears on the hero's finger. This ring only manifests when a master forms a contract with a beast. He then shares some of his mana to empower the little fox. With that done, he tells her to fight as much as she wants, without a care in the world. The small creature charges at the horde of raptors with all her might. The lead rooster opens its beak, bracing for the fox's attack. He activates sensory transfer, his eyes glowing just like the fox's. The little fox rushes forward, attacking the giant rooster with a direct strike. But the hero advises her not to be reckless and to be more patient in the fight. He then tells her to wait for the perfect moment to attack with everything she has. Seeing the ideal opening, the young man yells for her to attack now. Hearing the command, little Siola charges forward with a look of pure determination. She then sinks her teeth into the enemy's neck with all her might. The creature is thrown far away, landing on the ground heavily weakened. The fox uses her ability and begins to absorb the demonic energy. The rooster is left completely powerless as its energy is drained away. Utterly spent, the creature collapses, completely defeated by the fox. After absorbing the power, she turns to the other enemies in the horde. Like a streak of light, she darts towards the other raptors without hesitation. She lands a solid blow on one of the roosters, which cries out in pain. Next, she uses her tail to strike another enemy with a powerful swing. The small creature fights multiple enemies at once with no trouble. The hero is impressed, commenting that her moves are excellent for a beginner. Siola then grabs one of the raptors with her claws, immobilizing it in mid-air. The rooster shrieks in panic, captured so easily by the fox. With that, the creature's demonic energy begins to be slowly absorbed. As she absorbs the energy, little Siola's eyes turn completely white. After the battle, she evolves, growing a bit bigger and stronger. Around her neck, a collar with a blue gem appears like a gift. With a smile, he calls the fox over and congratulates her on her growth. The little creature's eyes turn white again, as if she's frightened, but she quickly returns to normal and asks if she did a good job. He nods, telling her she was amazing in her first battle. With that, he calls for her to head back home before the gate closes. Suddenly, he turns to the fallen raptors and commands them all to rise. The creatures awaken and look at the little fox with fear in their eyes. He explains that without demonic energy, they are all friends. He then tells everyone to run, and the raptors follow him out of the portal. The group runs toward the black hole as it slowly begins to close. At the last second, they make it through, and the portal vanishes into thin air. Arriving on the other side, he feels relieved they got out in time. Hands raised in the air as a crowd celebrates the return of the long-awaited hero. He's confused by the reception and doesn't understand what's happening. The fairies he saved thank him, calling him the great absolute being. The young man breaks into a nervous sweat, wondering if they're talking to him. The fairies then rush toward him, and he runs away, startled by the situation. The fairies cheer and also mention the guardian deity, Silver White Fang. One of the fairies approaches, and he finds it odd that she can speak his language. He then asks if this Silver White Fang is his little companion. The blonde fairy gets excited and asks if Seol A is the name of the legendary creature. She explains that in her world, white fangs are gods and silver ones are special. Legend says one with 5 tails saved their country from a carcass dragon. To her people, these creatures are practically living, sacred legends. So, seeing him treat this legend like a child, they call him an absolute being. They then begin to perform a welcoming dance for their new master. The young man notices the blonde one wears a crown and communicates differently from the others. With this, he asks if she happens to be some kind of royalty among fairies. The fairy then bows respectfully, confirming our hero's suspicion. She introduces herself as Johanna, the 4th and youngest princess of the Spirit clan. With a smile, he says he didn't guess it because he was an absolute being, or something. The princess begins to explain that their territory suddenly became a dungeon. Because of that, they ended up in this strange and dangerous world. Monsters attacked and stole their dungeon 3 days ago, and now her clan is in danger. He sums it up, they have nowhere to go and are starving. The princess agrees bashfully, and her stomach rumbles loudly right then. Hearing this, he remembers there's an orchard dungeon very close to his home. Feeling sorry for the fairies, he invites them to live in the dungeon near his house. The princess and the other fairies are moved and worship him even more for his kindness. He asks them to stop bowing, but they don't listen to his request. Sweating, he wonders if all princesses from her world are like this. Suddenly, the tiger Mengqi emerges from the water and runs toward them. The fairies are confused by the sudden appearance of the enormous creature. The tiger bares its fangs and a bluish power emanates from its glowing eyes. Terrified by the giant beast, the three fairies scream in fear and desperation. But instead of attacking, the tiger starts giving them piggyback rides. The fairies enjoy the ride and the hero just sweats nervously. Feeling jealous, the tiger tries to shake the fairies off, but his master calms him. In his jacket pocket, the young man's phone starts buzzing with a new message. He pulls out the device and sees his friend Chol. Bei added him to a group chat. The old man announces that the hero is in the group and tells everyone to say hi. A smile crosses his face. He figures this was his old friend's handiwork. In a flashback, we see the guildmaster snapping a photo of his friend with the fox. The old man boasts about modern technology and how he can share anything. In the group chat, the other war heroes start arguing and bickering among themselves. Kang Ho laughs, thinking they haven't changed a bit since the old days. He then thinks back to his comrades in arms who fought by his side. Together they became known as the 5 Great War Heroes. He decides to go see his old friends and train little Seal A. With that in mind, he begins to plan the best training for her. He sends a key in the group chat, and chaos immediately breaks out. A crowd of reporters and fans gathers on Bukansan Mountain. A reporter announces they are broadcasting the huge event live. News that 2 war heroes would face off had drawn everyone out. Fans snap photos and cheer excitedly for their legendary idols. Atop the mountain stands sword god Park Jun-woo, ranked 20th in the world. The old swordsman faces his opponent with a cold, calculating stare. On the other side is Bao god Kim Ho-young, ranked 21st in the world. With his bow in hand, the archer prepares for the grand duel. Suddenly, a woman with red hair parts the crowd. It was the flame witch Li Min-ah, another of the 5 Great War Heroes. Tired of the fighting, she tells him to stop it and go home. But the swordsman says there's no going back. The fight is happening no matter what. Angrily, the archer says the senile old man is about to get beaten down. The sword god loses his patience and readies a full-force attack. He draws his sword, warning his opponent not to blame him for what comes next. The bow god accepts the challenge, preparing to fire his arrow. The witch thinks to herself that they haven't changed at all, and old habits die hard. She then raises a hand and announces the battle is now an official match. But suddenly she notices something odd in the sky and pauses. The crowd also looks up, growing excited for what's about to happen. A massive explosion of blue light occurs, and a man appears in the sky. It was our hero, flying toward the battle site with his little fox. He lands in the middle of the crowd, which stares in surprise and awe. The witch then smiles and announces that today's match is cancelled. The 2 old men are furious, saying they're already past the point of no return. With a smirk, she asks if they're really going to fight with Kang Ho right there. Hearing his friend's name, the swordsman is shocked and instantly stops his attack. The archer is also stunned, barely able to believe it's really him. From the crowd, a hand raises to wave at the old friends. It was the Beastmaster with little Seol-A on his head, waving to them. The archer jokes that his friend finally showed up before they kicked the bucket. With a smile, he says he's going to eat and shop with his old friends. The little fox is confused by the word shopping and doesn't know what it means. The scene then cuts to a temple where swordsmen train with great seriousness. This is the sword god's new guild for training his successors. Inside the temple is a large storeroom filled with various rare medicinal herbs. He is surprised to find a rare herb that amplifies mana. The little fox tries to eat the plant, but the hero stops and scolds her. The swordsman tells him to take it all and feed the little creature well. Filled with envy, the archer yells for his friend to go ahead and raid the whole storeroom. Kang Ho expresses his thanks, and the old man says he was always prepared to give it all. With a smile, he asks his friend to visit more often in the future. The young man confirms he will and bids his old companion farewell. The 2 old men then invite him to a feast, since they haven't seen each other in 15 years. On the table, a huge spread of food and drinks is served for them. They declare they'll drink 15 years worth of soju to celebrate. Breaking a sweat, he wonders why only their appearances seem to have aged. Kang Ho scolds them, saying they should stop drinking at their age. The next day, he heads to the Bank of Seoul to handle some business. He walks toward the building with his small fox perched on his shoulder. A manager greets him with deep reverence and leads him to the VVIP room. The hero says he wants to withdraw some mana stones and asks him to stop bowing. He whispers to Seol-A that they need money to go shopping. The manager says he can use the armory and storage room as much as he likes. Meanwhile, a man on a motorcycle stops in front of the bank, observing the hero. With a serious gaze, the mysterious biker watches him from afar with interest. After he leaves the bank, the manager and other employees bid him farewell. The biker smirks and decides to see what's so special about that guy. He activates his special glasses, equipped with a mana detector and penetration lenses. His scan shows the manager has a few mana stones, but his power level is low. Annoyed, he complains that the manager is broke and doesn't get the fuss. But when he scans the hero, he sees 3 S-rank mana stones in his pocket. He's also carrying 2 A-rank and 5 B-rank stones. The man is shocked by the sheer amount of money he's carrying. He then tries to measure the young man's mana, but something strange happens. The device fails to get a reading, classifying him as a non-awakened. Meanwhile, our hero walks calmly down the street with his backpack. With a sly grin, the biker sees a golden opportunity. He calls his boss, telling him he's found a perfect target for them. The hero stops at a food stall, eating a skyr with his little fox. The biker tails him, telling his team to keep up the tracking. The young man then arrives on a dark and deserted street at night. He enters a small, old shop that appears to be abandoned. Inside, a woman with fox ears greets him and makes small talk about the weather. She comments that his tiger must have already become an absolute monster. With a curious look, she asks if the new creature is a descendant of Seowa. He confirms it, explaining she's a slightly different subspecies. The elder says that in her 100 years, she's never seen anything so rare. With a serious expression, she asks him to raise the greatest battle beast of all. The young man just smiles and leaves the shop with the little fox on his shoulder. 50 years after the dawn, he walks along a crowded street. He notices the people here come from many different races and cultures. Various races from the new continent had come to Earth and built this city. One of the 5 war heroines, the Flame Witch, is also one of them. Her race is magical, spending 80% of their lives in a youthful form. Besides them, another famous race from the Mu continent also settled here. It was the clan of dwarf blacksmiths, who greet the hero enthusiastically. The workshop owner embraces him, asking if he found what he was looking for. He says yes, and the blacksmith complains that they've been swamped lately. The hero then says he has a favor to ask, if it isn't too much trouble. He shows a magical bracelet, and the dwarf recognizes it as an aura blade. Kang Ho explains he took it out of storage after 15 years and it needs maintenance. The blacksmith says a request from him is always their highest priority. He then yells for all the other dwarves to stop what they're doing. With an awkward laugh, the young man thinks they're still the same as ever. The scene cuts back to the street where he was before entering the workshop. The thugs are spying on his shopping list, shocked at the cost of the items. The gang of Awakened then decides to ambush the hero as soon as he leaves. The blacksmith finishes the maintenance, and the bracelets glow with blue energy. He explains the item is now stronger and its mana is easier to control. The young man declines to test it, saying he'll have a chance for that soon. With that, he bids the dwarves farewell and leaves the workshop with a wave. The thugs follow him on their bikes, cornering him in a dark, empty street. Our hero walks calmly as the enemies surround him. The gang leader gives a signal, and all his men charge forward to attack. With a calm expression, he asks if all the thugs are out of hiding now. The leader scoffs at him, calling him a non-awakened for bluffing so much. The young man then asks if they used a mana detection lens on him. He explains that the device has a limit, which is why they misjudged him. The gang leader gets nervous but refuses to believe he's that powerful. He orders his men to attack, ignoring the hero's bluff. Kang Ho activates his bracelets and a blue aura begins to flow from his arms. He unleashes his mana, forming a powerful aura blade in his hand. With the aura blade active, he prepares to take on the entire gang. The thugs are shocked by this display of power, but continue their assault. With a single slash of his blade, he defeats every enemy at once. With a cold, serene look, the hero observes the bodies fallen on the ground. The gang leader's jaw hangs open, unable to believe what he just witnessed. He tries to measure the mana again, but the result is the same as before. Stunned, he wonders if the young man's combat power is really that high. With a flick of his hand, the hero shatters the thug's glasses into pieces. The man is terrified, stammering as he asks who he really is. The young man then picks up a phone from one of the fallen thugs. The screen shows a wanted poster with the gang leader's picture. He discovers the man is a former executive from one of the 3 big guilds. With a sigh, the hero remarks that the thug has been keeping himself busy. The man decides to run, knowing he can't defeat such a powerful opponent. He activates his assassin skill, and a purple aura emanates from his body. He uses his speed to leap between buildings and make his escape. He boasts that he's never been caught while using his ability. Kang Ho questions why he's living as a criminal with such a decent skill. But suddenly the hero appears in front of him, striking him with his blade. The thug is sent flying, and a huge explosion erupts in the middle of the street. Lying on the ground, he can't believe he was beaten by a top-tier ranker. He gets up, saying he won't let his guard down again, and prepares to fight. But when he looks for the hero, he can't find him anywhere and is confused. Suddenly, the hero appears behind him, grabbing him by the neck. He then flips the thug's dagger into the air and catches it with his aura blade. With a disapproving look, he says the man shouldn't use something so dangerous. He uses his blade to shatter the dagger and several other items on the ground. The gang leader cries out in pain as he's slammed violently against a wall. Lying on the ground, the thug gets up and glares at the hero with hate and fury. Kang Ho compliments the blacksmith's work and gives his little fox a pet. The man gets up and tries to grab the aura blade, but the hero warns him against it. With a serious look, he says the thug seems to be from the war generation. He then asks him why he's doing this after everything that happened. The man begins to shake, saying today's peaceful world is boring. With a psychopathic smile, he screams that he's going mad from the boredom. Our hero's expression fills with pity upon hearing the man's answer. He understands the war shattered the humanity of many awakened like him. Addicted to the chaos of battle, they ended up becoming cruel criminals. These people are the lunatics created by the war, a fact the current era tries to hide. The thug laughs, asking if the hero sees a part of himself in him. The young man stays silent, just looking at him with a serious, thoughtful expression. Elsewhere, the swordsman is talking and drinking with the officer. The old hero comments it was a surprise to learn his friend was Kang Ho. The swordsman laughs, saying he's the only one who's aged terribly among them. The officer explains he found the hero too gentle for a war legend. The old hero takes a drink and says he may seem that way now. But he warns it's not the whole story, and the officer becomes curious. With a serious look, he reveals that Kang-ho has a truly awful temper. Back at the fight, the hero questions the thug about hating this air of peace. With a sadistic smile, he says he'll give the man exactly what he wants. The swordsman says there's no stupider way to ask to be taken out. He even claims he'd rather take himself out than get caught by the Beastmaster. In the fight scene, the hero unleashes a flurry of swift blows on his enemy. Every punch and kick lands with brutal force. The young man then channels energy into his fist for a final attack. He lands a powerful punch to the man's face, sending him flying from the impact. The blow creates a massive cloud of dust and debris in the street. Back at the temple, the swordsman's phone starts ringing. He answers surprised, asking what made his friend call him first. Kang-ho says he has some business and asks if he knows a Lee Jong-myung. The old hero erupts in fury, shouting that the man is an absolute scoundrel. He asks where the thug is, and the young man tells him to send some of his men. He then informs him that he's already taken down the entire gang. The thug realizes he's the king of demonic beasts and is left in shock. Frightened, he confirms this is the only hideout and that it was robbed. The hero's curiosity is piqued, and he asks about this thief called Phantom. The man explains he's a famous thief who leaves a black card behind. The young man turns and confirms he will let the thug live as requested, but then he suddenly strikes the man, who cries out in pain. The thug feels his mana vanishing and panics at the situation. Kang-ho explains he destroyed his mana core, he will now live as a civilian. The man screams, begging to be put out of his misery, as he can't live without his powers. With a cold look, the hero says he must now remember this pain and carry on. He thinks about the sacrifices made to achieve peace, lost in thought. With a touch, he soothes the little fox, saying not everyone is like that man. He then invites her back home but warns her that a bath is waiting. Back at his cabin in the snow, he prepares to keep his promise. Little Seola yelps and tries to flee, but he chases her without a second thought. He manages to catch her in mid-air, saying there's no escaping bath time. The young man holds her tight as she struggles and complains endlessly. With a smile, he tells her she's getting a bath one way or another. But this was no ordinary bath. He tosses a fruit into the water. It was a fruit from the world tree, which he'd acquired on his shopping trip. Using his mana, he dissolves the fruit, mixing it into the bath water. He then asks the fox if the scent and temperature are okay. Carefully, little Seole dips her paw in the water to test it. She loves the feeling and happily hops into the tub with a smile. The young man is pleased to see his little companion enjoying her bath. Long ago, beast warriors would rub the peel of this fruit on their bodies. Just a small amount made their fur and skin much stronger. But the little fox was absorbing the entire fruit all at once. She relaxes in the water as a steam with a blue aura begins to rise. The energy dissipates, leaving only a few droplets on the floor. The hero is surprised to see the water evaporate so quickly. With a smile, he thinks the fruit's effects are both immense and powerful. Little Seole emerges from the bath looking even fluffier and more radiant. He finds it strange, as the fruit's effects should have worn off by now. Suddenly, the fox begins to glow with an intense white light. She gains a new ability, Guardian of Nature, and absorbs energy. The young man gets a nervous sweat, wondering how she absorbs things so well. With a smile, he scoops her up, saying she's now clean and sparkling. He then invites her to eat, and the little creature gets excited. The scene ends on the snow-covered cabin nestled among the mountains. Through the window, we see the hero and his beasts getting ready to cook. The fairies and raptors help carry ingredients to the kitchen. Frying pan in hand, he prepares to start cooking for everyone. The little fairies place the ingredients on a large table. The princess explains that a normal fire can't break the shells. The hero then reveals a handful of mana stones, saying they'll be enough. The fairy panics, warning him that will cause a massive explosion. Ignoring her warning, he tosses all the stones into the fire at once. With a confident smile, he prepares to control the power of the flames. The stones explode with an intense light as the fire shoots high into the air. The princess screams in terror, thinking everything is about to blow up. But with a gesture, the young man controls the flames with incredible skill. He then begins to expertly cook the ingredients in the frying pan. Flames dance in the pan as he prepares the meal for all of them. The princess is stunned by the man's mana control and power. After roasting everything into a fine powder, he continues the process. He then asks the fairy to bring the rare plant he got from his friend. With the herb in hand, he squeezes it to extract every drop of juice. He mixes the powder and juice to form a thick, yellow paste. With his hands, he rolls the paste into a small, round, glowing ball. Using the ingredients, he makes several shiny, yellow dumplings. He offers one to the princess, but she refuses, afraid it might explode. With a smile, he explains that those dumplings aren't for them. Little Seole drools at the sight of the food, her stomach rumbling. Her eyes sparkling, she asks if those dumplings are for her. The hero confirms it, but warns her to eat only one due to its effects. The little fox wastes no time, leaping into her master's hand to grab the food. She bites into the dumpling enthusiastically, and blue energy begins to flow from her. The small creature rubs against her master, savoring the sensation. Suddenly, she starts to grow and evolve right before everyone's eyes. The fairies are shocked to see her nearly double in size in seconds. The fox runs through the snow, testing out her new form and freshly gained power. With a smile, he watches his partner run, happy and satisfied. She dashes at high speed, leaving a trail of blue light in her path. The young man and little Seol run together through the snow, enjoying the moment. He thinks that she absorbs remedies much better and grows faster than her mother did. With a thoughtful look, he recalls knowing nothing when he raised Xiao Hua. Back then, he just fought without considering the consequences of his actions. Full of regret, he remembers how much he studied after losing her. The little fox leaps with joy and the hero watches her with a smile. With a determined expression, he vows to give the little fox what he couldn't give her mother. The little fox bounds toward him with a smile, her eyes shining with joy. But she ends up tackling him to the ground, and he's surprised by her weight. The two roll through the snow together in a moment of pure, playful fun. Lying in the snow, he promises to make her the best and let her live in luxury. He pets her, teasing if she wants to show off her new size. With a smile, he gets up and invites her to go find the tiger Meng Shi. Elsewhere in the city, a white tiger runs through the streets at high speed. It's Meng Chi, sleeping soundly and dreaming of his distant past. In his dream, he recalls an old man staring at him with fear and wonder. The man is confused, asking what this tiny, cute creature is. He was just a saber-toothed tiger cub, left alone in the cold snow. The old man tells him to leave, as a fence will be built there soon. The scene flashes back 16 years to the man picking him up. He threatens the small cub, saying he'll have to put him down if he doesn't go. But the tiger just licks his hand, looking up with innocent red eyes. The man leans in for a closer look, and the cub stares right back. The old man goes quiet, simply observing him with a thoughtful, calm gaze. He puts his weapon back on his belt, abandoning the idea of hurting the cub. With that, the man extends his hand, deciding to take the little creature in. He offers a piece of jerky to the cub, who eats it eagerly. The old man remarks that life is tough for both of them, anyway. As thanks, the tiger licks the man's face, who calls him a little rascal. He says goodbye and walks away, leaving the small cub behind in the snow. The tiger looks on sadly as his new friend gets farther away. The man looks toward the distant city, seeming to feel lonely. Suddenly, the cub dashes after him with a determined look. The old man waves with a smile, saying goodbye one last time to the little tiger. From that day forward, the cub grew up under the man's care. He runs through the snow, showing he was already much bigger and stronger. The saber-toothed tiger cub grew rapidly over time. Now an adult, he pounces on the man, who is startled by the creature's size. With a smile, he calls him a furball and decides to give him a name. And that is how the saber-toothed tiger came to be named Meng Shi. The old man shares that he lost his family to monsters during the Great War. After that, he wandered alone and contracted an otherworldly disease. He wonders why he couldn't bring himself to put down the cub, even though it was an enemy. The little tiger watches him, listening to his words with a curious gaze. The man then says he saw himself in the lonely cub who had no one. He suddenly starts coughing, and little Meng Chi grows with worry. The tiger decides to repay the kindness and sets off to find food for the man. He runs through the snow, promising to return soon with something to eat. The old man smiles, watching him go with a look of fondness and affection. But suddenly he collapses, falling into the snow with no strength to get up. After a successful hunt, the tiger returns with a rabbit in his mouth for his friend. But upon arriving, he finds the old man on the ground and falls into a panic. He tries to wake him, but the man doesn't respond, remaining unconscious. Holding his friend, he looks toward the city and decides to get help. He remembers the old man's words about the danger the city posed. But with his friend in peril, he ignores the warning and runs toward the city. The old man remains unconscious as the tiger rushes to find aid. Determined, he races down the mountain at top speed with the man on his back. Reaching the city, he spots a group of soldiers training in a courtyard. The men are startled to see a saber-toothed tiger, an S-rank species. They go on high alert, calling for backup to evacuate local residents. The tiger tries to communicate, but the soldiers don't understand and prepare to attack. He's struck by a spear and cries out in pain from the deep wound. The soldiers continue to fire arrows and spears at the creature without mercy. Even injured, he keeps advancing toward the soldiers with determination. The tiger only wanted help to save his friend, who is passing away on his back. Gravely wounded, the tiger pleads for help to save his ailing friend. He continues to push forward but finally collapses, too weak to go on. On the verge of passing out, he keeps begging for help with his last ounce of strength. Suddenly, our hero appears and tells the soldiers not to interfere. The tiger opens his eyes and sees a young man approaching to help them. Kang Ho says it's just a stray and that he can handle it easily. With a single touch, he heals the tiger's wounds, and the soldiers obey his command. He asks if the creature needs help and tells it to lead the way. The tiger feels his body strengthening and is amazed by the young man's power. Arriving at the location, he touches the old man's chest and feels his heart beating. He explains it's an endemic disease from the Mu continent and is very serious. With a smile, he says the old man was lucky to have such a courageous friend. He uses his purple manta and begins to draw the sickness from the man's body. The old man's eyes slowly open, and he sees the tiger staring at him with worry. He calls out Meng Chi's name, and the tiger joyfully pounces on him. The man hugs him, saying he's also happy to see him safe and sound. As the dream ends, the tiger wakes up and looks at the city in the distance. He sees his master waving and runs toward him happily. With red eyes, he remembers the past and how he was saved. The hero and his two beasts wave toward the horizon and a bright future. The tiger visits the grave of the man who saved and raised him with love. He remembers the old man's final words before entrusting him to the hero. The man had asked the tiger to follow the young man and live freely in the world. On the headstone is a photo of the old man with a gentle, serene smile. 5 years after giving the tiger away, the man passed on, peacefully and alone. Since then, the hero and his beasts have visited his grave every year. Little Seol looks up at the sky, seeing water droplets falling from nowhere. The great tiger Meng Chi cries silently as he remembers his friend. Kang Ho pets the fox and says the place won't feel so cold. Suddenly, a giant bee bursts from the ground and flies toward them. The hero and his beast prepare to face the new threat that has appeared. The bee collapses in the snow, looking weak and almost out of energy. More bees appear, and the young man wonders if they are the new species. A swarm of giant bees flies through the snow in a coordinated assault. He activates his beast eye to analyze the stats of these strange creatures. They were battle bees with an ability of blind obedience to their master. One of the bees approaches the fox, who wonders if it's for her. With a determined look, she snatches the bee, holding it in her claws. The hero realizes she sensed the strange creature's magical energy. The bee struggles to get free, but the fox holds it tight, preventing its escape. The young man observes the situation, understanding what's happening. The bee tries to sting the fox with its stinger but can't pierce her fur. The fox stares down the bee with her bright, power-filled blue eyes. She then bites the creature, shattering it into pieces with her teeth. Shards of the bee fall into the hero's hand, and he examines them carefully. He explains the fox's skin was reinforced by the bath with the rare fruit. He notices the stinger contains a paralyzing venom and understands the danger. Because of this, he decides he can't let these creatures roam free. He mounts his tiger and orders him to follow the swarm of giant bees. Together, they pursue the creatures through the snow with incredible speed and power. The biggest problem was the diet of these bees, which ate everything. They devoured grass, trees, and would even eat the entire mountain if given the chance. As extreme omnivores, they could attack human settlements at any moment. The hero decides he will eliminate all of them before that can happen. The tiger barks in agreement, preparing for the impending battle. Suddenly, he spots a black portal in the sky and is puzzled by its appearance. He asks if that's where the bees live as the swarm flies into the portal. He comments it's been 15 years since he last saw a red raid class gate. The tiger growls, remembering the trouble they had the last time. With a confident smile, the hero says this time they are ready to go in. The tiger's claws glow as he prepares for battle against the swarm. The young man asks if the bees are trying to protect their home. His eyes glowing, he unleashes his mana and activates his predator instinct. The swarm of giant bees feels the pressure and immediately halts its attack. Mounted on his tiger, he stares seriously at the entrance to the cave. In raid class gates, an entire ecosystem from another world is transported over. Because of this, various rare resources can often be found in these places. However, the monsters guarding these resources are also extremely powerful. He notices a new species of bee, even larger and stronger than the others. One of the monsters shrieks and lunges to attack the hero with its stinger. The young man catches it with one hand, giving it a cold, calculating look. He analyzes the creature, seeing it's a D-rarity bee. An even larger swarm emerges from deep within the cave to protect its home. He realizes these are the true guardians of this dangerous place. The tiger barks in agreement, readying himself for the great battle ahead. The bees advance in a coordinated attack, flying at high speed. The hero then activates sensory transfer, sharing his senses with the tiger. Through this, they share mana and physical abilities for the fight. The tiger and master become one, preparing to face the swarm. They shoot into the sky, charging the bees with everything they have. The tiger charges forward, shredding several bees with its sharp claws. With one powerful swipe, he takes down multiple enemies at once. Little Seol also joins the fray, furiously attacking the bees. With a yip, she bites one of the creatures, holding on tight. She tries to swallow the bee, but it's too big for her mouth. The little fox struggles but can't manage to eat the giant insect. The hero chuckles, saying the bee is still too big for her to eat. He scolds her, and the little creature grumbles with a disappointed look. The tiger continues to fight, but the swarm of bees attacks relentlessly. The creatures fire a rain of poisonous stingers in his direction. With a serious look, the young man realizes the enemies are endless. He charges with his tiger, attacking the hives to destroy the source. Suddenly, he senses a powerful magical energy from deep inside the cave. He decides to go see for himself what's happening in there. He leaps from the tiger's back and advances alone toward the energy. The hero propels himself through the air, flying at high speed to his destination. He dives into a deep, dark pit at the end of the cave. Using his bracelets, he creates an aura blade for protection. A swarm of smaller bees emerges from the pit, surrounding him from all sides. He then activates his blade, wiping out all the creatures at once. With a keen eye, he pinpoints the origin of all the magical energy. It was a giant hive that the bees were guarding with their lives. He lands on the ground, preparing to face the source of all that power. A dark silhouette with a purple aura appears before our hero. With a serious gaze, he realizes that creature has finally shown itself again. It was a demon man with red eyes and an overwhelming presence. The dark being is surprised to see the young man made it this far. The hero faces him with a cold, determined look, showing no fear. A voice in his head screams in desperation, saying they're in big trouble. He's confused, trying to understand where that voice is coming from. The dark silhouette shouts, thanking God that he can be heard. The young man is even more confused by the demonic being's behavior. He then introduces himself as fourth in the hierarchy of the demon kingdom. With a serious look, the hero wonders if the creature is about to attack. But suddenly the dark silhouette transforms into a man with purple hair. With his hands in the air, he unconditionally surrenders to our hero. He explains that he hates fighting, especially against such a strong opponent. Elsewhere, the tiger Meng Chi watches the situation with a curious look. He seizes the distraction to start eating the bees from the giant swarm. With the enemy's surrender, the young man deactivates his aura blade and relaxes. The young man understands he is different from the other demons he met in the war. With a serious look, he approaches and asks what this creature is. The purple-haired man says that if he needs a label, he's a demon. The hero finds a demon's presence here odd, and the little fox attacks him. Embarrassed, he explains he fled from a fight and got caught mid-transformation. The young man questions him for bringing a queen bee along while escaping. Looking scared, the demon stretches and reveals the large creature behind him. It was a sea-rarity queen bee with powerful attack and defense. He explains the bees aren't dangerous, and he only sent them for reconnaissance. With a gesture, he pets the queen, transforming her into a small statue. The bee becomes a fossil, and he explains that in this state, it only eats pollen. The hero is surprised by the skill and power of the demon before him. He continues explaining she wouldn't hurt anyone and is harmless. But suddenly, the tiger monk she appears and devours the statue in one gulp. The demon panics, saying he'd raised her since she was small. Little Ciola pounces on him and begins to absorb his demonic energy. He screams in despair, asking who these strange creatures are. The hero realizes the demon isn't a threat, but a source of information. With the fox attacking him, the man begs them to make her stop. The young man recalls the demon's shocking strength, something he can't forget. With his hand glowing, he prepares to seal the demon's power. He then grabs him by the chest and begins to absorb his demonic energy. With a serious look, he warns that he's putting a safety measure on him. The demon cries out in pain as his mana heart is sealed by the hero. The purple energy is pulled from his body and he collapses powerless. The little fox jumps on him and starts to eat the leftover energy. She complains that it tastes bad and the demon is shocked by the situation. The young man threatens him, saying he'll finish him off if he tries anything funny. Scared, the man agrees while the fox wonders what kind of mana this is. Outside, various guilds have gathered after hearing about the gate's appearance. The only reason so many guilds were there was for raid priority. With the war over, a gate with so many resources was a valuable treasure. The selection for raid priority was decided through a tournament. A blonde man in sunglasses kicks his opponent with a powerful blow. The guild with the strongest fighter would win priority to raid the gate. One of the 3 big guilds had recruited a special fighter for the tournament. The blonde man dodges an attack and counters with a spinning kick. He was known as King, the world's 10th ranked SS hunter. After defeating his opponent, he snaps a selfie to post online. Besides being a powerful hunter, he was also a famous influencer. A large, strong man challenges him, saying he'll turn him into mincemeat. He counts to 5 and glares at the blonde man with pure rage. King is unfazed, saying the big guy is acting tough because he wants a beating. The two then charge at each other to begin the battle for the gate. They trade high-speed punches and kicks in a very even fight. But suddenly 2 figures emerge from the gate, interrupting the brawl. It was our hero and the demon he captured, stepping out of the dungeon. The demon is shocked that the young man got out so easily. The big guy falls and the hero catches him to break his fall. He wonders where those 2 people just appeared from. The young man and the demon look at the fallen fighter in surprise. Outside, numerous guilds and trucks are gathered and waiting. The hero notices the landscape has changed significantly since he went in. One of the men points at him, asking if he just came out of the dungeon. With a calm look, the young man confirms as the gate's red aura swirls around him. The men are stunned, unable to believe someone survived. King is furious about the interruption and charges forward to attack. He yells, calling them scoundrels for ruining his fun. With a green aura, he prepares to eliminate the intruders once and for all. The demon asks if he's going to take the man out, and the hero shushes him. The young man sizes up the blonde man, noting his arrogance. The two stare each other down intensely, and tension fills the air. King shouts, asking who he thinks he is, walking out of the gate without permission. The hero questions if he needs permission, which irritates the blonde man even more. Angrily, he explains the fight is to decide raid priority. The young man understands, and the blonde man calls him a civilian for not knowing. He threatens the hero, telling him to know his place and stay out of it. The demon asks again if he's going to take out the blonde man, looking very curious. Kang-ho grabs him by the collar, saying absolutely not. With a smile, he confirms he has no intention of taking the hunter's life. The demon persists with the question, and the young man seriously denies it once more. He lets go of the demon, and the blonde man glares at him with anger and scorn. With that, he grabs him by the collar, threatening him with a furious gaze. The hero smiles, saying he won't take his life, but he never said he wouldn't hurt him. Suddenly, a man in armor flies in, surprising everyone. It was the guild master of White Knight, who also came for the contest. He introduces himself as Lee Huck and greets our hero respectfully. Kang-ho recognizes him as the best disciple of his swordsman friend. The blonde man is furious at being ignored and yells at the young man nonstop. He boasts about his followers, refusing to be treated with such indifference. King asks how he knows a non-awakened and finds the name familiar. He remembers and asks in shock if that is the Beast King of the 5 heroes. The young man just smiles, and the swordsman's disciple notices the expression. He remembers his master's warning about his friend's smile. The old man said to be careful when Kang-ho smiles like a saint. It means he's about to completely and mercilessly crush his opponent. The disciple is terrified to see his smile is now even wider. King doesn't believe that man is a hero and sees an opportunity. With a wicked smile, he prepares to attack and surpass a legend. The hero asks if he's really going to attack, thanking him with a smile. The blonde man focuses energy into his fist and lunges forward. He yells, throwing a powerful punch right at the young man's face. With a triumphant grin, he celebrates landing the first blow. But suddenly, he realizes the hero has vanished, and the demon is startled. The young man appears behind him, grabbing him by the tie and pulling him close. He throws him into the air and hits him with a powerful kick to the stomach. With a cold look, he asks if all that arrogance was just for priority. He then slams him to the ground with force, inviting him to try raiding the gate. The blonde man crashes into the snow and a massive explosion of power erupts. The hero and his beast look down on the fallen opponent with an air of superiority. Lying on the ground, the blonde man wonders if this is all just a dream. He can't believe he was defeated in such a humiliating way. The hero says he doesn't like settling things with force but was going to let it slide. With a serious expression, he advances on the hunter, cloaked in a blue aura. The two exchange high-speed blows, creating a massive shockwave of energy. King tries to land a punch, but the young man easily catches his arm. He calls the hero an old man, saying this is the heir of the second generation. With a cold gaze, the young man says he should act with more humility. He then slams him to the ground with a powerful blow, pinning him with his foot. The demon and the disciple watch, wondering if he's about to be done for. With a cold sweat, they think that surrendering was the smartest choice. The pin to the ground, the blonde man looks up at the hero and asks if he's recovered. The young man criticizes his movements and asks who his master is. He advises the hunter to live humbly because talent isn't everything. With a serious look, he says the blonde man needs to learn how to work hard. The man is shocked by his words, realizing how arrogant he's been. He wonders if he was just a frog in a well and smiles bitterly. The hero snaps a photo of him and posts it on social media with a few hashtags. The young man advises him to find a good master to train his skills. With a smile, he says this place is great for selfies and takes more pictures. The gate is destroyed and the hero successfully clears it. Since then, social media has been flooded with rumors about the event. Back at his cabin, a detailed investigation into the demon kingdom begins. The demon enjoys the snow as the hero starts questioning him with his phone. He goes over the demon's story and his arrival in this unknown world. The purple-haired man says an area of his world started turning into dungeons. He never imagined these dungeons would connect to another dimension. With a serious look, the hero realizes 50 years have passed since the dawn. And now, new monster species and a new dimension are connected to Earth. He then asks about the power level of the place the demon came from. The young man explains that according to Theo's claims, he was fourth among 72 monarchs. This meant he was a significantly powerful individual in his own world. With a sly smile, the demon asks the hero to release his power. He starts to sweat, not liking the idea of fighting again. But the young man says there's no choice and snaps his fingers with a blue flash. With a snap of his fingers, he releases the seal and the demon's power returns. A purple aura explodes from his body as he celebrates his energy's return. He tells the hero to watch closely, because this is his true ability. The young man thinks he'll have to take him out if he tries anything funny. Suddenly, skeletal hands of purple energy burst from the ground and attack him. With a wicked smile, the demon calls upon the departed to obey his command. Numerous skeletons with red eyes and purple auras rise from the snow. The hero is surprised, wondering if this man is a necromancer. The demon boasts about his true power as the skeletons rise beside him. He explains he turns corpses into familiars and controls them with his will. The hero thinks this is an ability you only see in fantasy novels. Kang-ho reflects that no awakened on Earth possesses a power like this. But suddenly little Seole appears, excited by the tasty thing that showed up. Like a flash, she zips through the skeletons and starts absorbing their energy. The necromancer gets a bad feeling and becomes very suspicious. The little fox then hops onto his shoulder, and he yells, asking what she's doing. He panics as he feels his mana being drained by the creature once again. Shocked, he asks if this was all part of the Beast Master's plan. With a slight smirk, the hero replies with something along those lines. The demon is utterly confused by the response and understands nothing. The young man watches as the mana in the enemy's core is slowly purified. Theo realizes the empty space is being filled with purified mana. The little fox looks cute and sparkly after absorbing the energy. With that, her tail begins to glow intensely and a new one sprouts beside it. The Beastmaster is surprised to see she's gained a second tail. Her status window now shows her rarity as double S rank. With a smile, he notes that the little beast got a new tail and evolved. The second tail ability has been acquired and others will activate over time. He then recalls the legend of the silver fox mentioned by the elf princess. The story told of a five-tailed fox that fought a dragon. This makes the young man wonder if his partner will keep growing like the legend. Suddenly, the phone in his pocket begins to vibrate with a call. He answers and realizes it's his old friend, Cho Bei, calling him. On the other end, the guildmaster asks our hero for a favor. The old man explains that another ranker from his group vanished in the southern conflict zone. The missing person was Hound, the 30th strongest hunter in all of Korea. In a concerned tone, his friend says he has already pulled his forces from the area. The hero's face turns serious as he asks what on earth is happening down south. The southern conflict zone included Daegu and Busan, with the final entrance at Daejin, but the city remains safe only because of a family of legendary mages. Arriving there, the Beastmaster uses his double S rank free pass to enter. A soldier greets him respectfully, and he requests permission to pass the gate. The guard agrees but hesitates when he sees the hero's odd companion. He then asks who the person beside him is, and the young man looks awkward. He says it's his assistant while the demon happily eats a lollipop. The soldier gets a notification and says everything is in order for them to proceed. Passing through the gate, they encounter a city in complete ruins. 30 years had passed, but the southern part of the country was still a war zone. Calamity species dominate the area, locked in a brutal, endless fight for territory. Seeing dragons battling in the sky, the hero begins to ask a very obvious question. He wonders why no one has cleared them out and calls his tiger to move forward. With that, the Beastmaster tells his new assistant to get on the animal too. The demon says this place reminds him of home and isn't so bad, but suddenly a piece of a monster comes flying right at him. The assistant flinches as the creature part gets very close to his face. Kang-ho then asks if he'll enjoy those memories with his mana sealed. Scared, the demon changes his tune, saying it's time to embrace new scenery. He hops on the tiger, bidding farewell to his old memories to follow the hero. The truth was, there was no need to clear the area, as the population hadn't recovered, and the mana stones from the already evolved monsters were worthless. Because of this, the southern region had become a complete and wild wasteland. Spotting a sign for Digu, the demon remarks that it really does look like his home. The young man explains that the heat grass transforms the place into a rainforest. Seeing his beasts struggling, he apologizes, as they aren't used to it. Because of this, the hero decides they'll continue on foot from here. Suddenly, a scream gets their attention, and they wonder what it was. With a serious expression, the Beastmaster wonders if someone is nearby. He then takes off at high speed to investigate the source of the noise. The demon notes that the sound is getting much closer. Seeing the energy in the air, the young man wonders if that was really an explosion. Just then, another shockwave rips through the forest with immense force. Suddenly, they spot two giant monsters fighting ferociously. A wolf and a lizard tear at each other with teeth and claws in a brutal battle. The hero then realizes the creatures aren't fighting, but fleeing. With that, a massive wave of energy hits the monsters, sending them flying. Through the smoke, they spot a blonde man surrounded by fallen enemies. The young man finds this strange, as his friend said all forces had been withdrawn. Looking closer, he finds the hunter's face very familiar. Kang-ho is certain he's seen the man before and tries to remember where. The demon then recognizes him, asking if that isn't the guy King. The hero confirms it, wondering what on earth he's doing in a place like this. With a powerful aura, the hunter glares at the Beastmaster with a serious look. The young man gives a cold stare, wondering if the blonde guy wants another thrashing. But suddenly, the hunter bows respectfully, greeting him as Senior. Kang-ho finds this odd, commenting that the young man has become strangely polite. King asks what he's doing here, but the hero throws the same question back at him. With a confident smile, the hunter replies that he's here to train. The Beastmaster breaks a sweat, unable to believe he's training here. The hero thinks that no idiot would purposely enter a world with mutated calamity monsters. But he realizes that if you live long enough, you eventually see that nothing is impossible. The hunter explains there are many variants, and they get stronger deeper inside. The young man then asks how exactly he was conducting his training here. The blonde man awkwardly scratches his head and starts to explain his training method. Just then, a swarm of flying insect-like monsters approaches them. He explains his method is simple: he destroys every last scoundrel he sees. The young man says he burns all his mana, recharges, and does it all over again. The demon looks disgusted and tells the human to take it down a notch. The hero finds his training method basic, like treating mana as a muscle. He thinks that efficiency is what matters, just as his swordsman friend taught. Kang-ho remembers the blonde man as a genius with raw talent but no master. Therefore, no matter how much of a genius he is, self-training has its limits. But suddenly, the Beastmaster grabs the hunter's fist, stopping him. King feels his mana vanish, wondering if he's about to get beaten like that again. The hero tells him to listen, saying that in a real fight, balance is key. He explains that if you lower your guard, the enemy will naturally attack that opening. At that moment, the hero demonstrates how an enemy exploits that opening to attack. The young man teaches him to draw the enemy in close and catch his breath, and then finish them with his stored mana as his body needs stability. The blonde hunter decides to test the Beastmaster's lesson. He thinks he'll lower his guard on purpose to bait the enemies. At that, a horde of monstrous insects charges right for him. The young man knows that if he shows any weakness, the enemy will attack without mercy. He then uses his stored mana to attack at the perfect moment and defend himself. With a grin, he realizes the fight is going exactly as he wanted. The young man gets excited, understanding that this is true balance. Watching it all, the hero thinks that he never used to care for clumsy types. He recalls his own immature days, growing up on the battlefield. Kang-ho then realizes the young man reminds him of his past self. Meanwhile, the blonde man continued to destroy the insects with great efficiency. He then notices his mana and breathing are now completely stable. The hunter remembers always finding others' advice useless and annoying, but now he feels he wants to learn so much more from this incredible man. With that, the young man runs to the group, asking if he can tag along. With a new and unexpected companion, they finally reach the city's center. The Beastmaster looks to the sky, sensing something very strange is present. They all look up, on alert from the energy they're feeling. The demon is shocked, shouting that it's a powerful demonic energy. He explains the energy covers the whole area like a giant, sinister dome. The blonde hunter complains that his phone is out of service, and he has no signal. With a serious look, the hero says this must be where the mercenaries vanished. He then notices something odd in the middle of the city and pays close attention. Pointing into the distance, the young man identifies it as a crypto-type monster. He explains the mother roots itself in one spot to expand its territory. From there, the creature's roots spread throughout the entire ruined city. The demon is curious and asks what happens after it's settled. Suddenly, the giant plant begins to release a massive cloud of spores. The green particles quickly spread all over the forest area. The assistant explains it uses spores to dominate the surrounding area. He then points to some monkeys, warning that if the spores touch them, the animals are transformed into hosts for that disgusting thing. With that, the monkeys become monsters, and the demon says they were a plague. The Beastmaster catches a spore, and his assistant screams for him not to touch it. But the young man examines it closely, saying these aren't simple spores. The sphere then opens, revealing that these things are larvae. The hero understands the problem and readies himself for battle, calling his tiger. He uses sense transfer, acquiring the strength of the beast's legs. This temporarily increases the power of his kicks by 5 times. With a mighty leap, he launches into the sky, charging into battle alone. The blonde hunter is impressed, while the demon suggests they just wait. Mounted on his beast, the hero soars through the sky toward the target at high speed. The Beastmaster and his partner fly through the air, straight for the source of it all. Arriving there, they finally reach the origin of the crypto-monster race. This was the crypto-mother, which had rooted itself firmly in this spot. She had already turned every living thing around her into a host. The creature detects the intruders, sensing a human and a beast approaching. With a smirk, she thinks that this peaceful world lacks strong warriors. With that, she issues a level 1 alert to capture and transform the intruders. Answering the call, a horde of monsters charges to attack the hero. The young man and his partner expertly dodge the horde of flying creatures. Seeing so many enemies, the hero realizes his suspicion was correct. The missing hunters had been transformed into hosts